Good morning, everybody. I'll give it a few minutes to let people log on. I want to give a public disclosure about the works we've been on for over 3 years straight, and basically what the Liberal government, specifically the Privy Council of Canada, key Crown positions, both over the First Peoples here in Canada, specifically all Treaty Indians, all Canadians, especially the third-class Canadian, the working Joe Janes. What's happening in America, what I now have to do on June 28th, 2022. Cambridge, beautiful. I got help from academics that highlighted some things. I did a paper. I didn't win any awards for it, but it went around the world. It went to world powers. And it went through academia, all over academia. And then 2 Cambridge doctorates of law, masters of their field, wrote papers too in the same competition I did. And they're all on the Security Council. And what has now happened to me and what we're doing coming on June 28th, I call it the Liberal red flag, but it's basically all Privy Council, the Crown of Canada. This is Pierre Poilievre, absolutely the Conservative Party, absolutely NDP, all through and through attached to the Liberals and the rest of the parties. If they were given a vote, I can guarantee all Canadians, all First Peoples, Treaty Indians, Métis, Inuit, unceded Indians, I can guarantee you all, they would all, including Green Party, regardless of what people tell you, they would all take it because they're Crown. And just as we're seeing with Roseanne Archibald and Governor General Mary Simon, we're seeing it. And then there's positions in this country, regardless of race, religion, creed, culture. There are people who gravitate to that. 8 times out of 10, they will betray you, the people. There's no racial differences here, folks. I've learned that over and over again, that when it comes to this Crown system, this constitutional monarchy, this build from the League of Nations, that the UN has succeeded. The allies, they're the successor, the 5 allies of World War II, took that. Now, there's been some terrific presidents. It's not a partisan issue because while largely Republican presidents have done monumentally the most, I can take you through Teddy Roosevelt, JFK, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and even Bill Clinton, and show you tremendously good presidents on behalf of we the people, on behalf of Americans, and that idea of the highest law of the land of the people of America, and absolutely for all the American Indians, the nation within the nation. There's some great celebrities out there, long since gone now. One of the biggest is a favorite of mine, Johnny Cash, and what he did in protest for the American Indians, and through Richard Nixon, and what the Hollywood celebrity community did. The Man in Black, Johnny Cash, he made a whole album. If you ever get a chance to look at it, his fight against America. He was banned. He wasn't allowed to publish, and he wasn't allowed to record either. He had to fight. The Man in Black fought, and he won. Richard Nixon liked him. Richard Nixon was on the same path as one, Johnny Cash, and they did monumental things in that time. The most ever done by the United States in absolute human rights and civil rights, and not small issues. Richard Nixon made a deal with the Beijing Communist Party, One China. They gave UN status to China after the rest of the world did, folks. The rest of the UNSC had already done that. All other 3 members were in favor of Beijing China. So don't ever accuse USA of not doing or being, responsible for the world and how it operates. So USA did that under Richard Nixon. He also embraced Russia's 1960 decolonization, as was Teddy Roosevelt's promise to all Americans, in America first. It's actually not just somebody's presidential campaign slogan. It's actual law of the people of America, created in the 20s, in fact. They said, no, 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 World War I, Americans, much more involved in civics, much more educated at that time, said, no, 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 this world is not we the people. And we will never accept that. We will never accept that. The War of Independence, taught in every school, the Boston Tea Party, all of it is enshrined in the education system of the United States. At least it always has been. And I'm really afraid. I'm really afraid now, because what's happening in the U.S. under President Joe Biden, and even Bernie Sanders, okay, everybody, Bernie Sanders does a video. It's gone viral. I seen it days ago, and I wanted to sit on it. I had to think about it because it pissed me off, and it should piss all of you off too, and just how many Americans have fallen for it. And it's a tremendously excellent video. It truly is. It hit me right in the heart, and I'm like, beautiful. And then, in the last closing sentences, Bernie Sanders turns around and sells out every working American on the greatest lie, the greatest betrayal of the Constitution of the United States, and goes with the Green New Deal. Folks, the Green New Deal is a proclamation of the royal family, something no American, Democrat or Republican alike, in any minority would ever go after, not the American people. And then Bernie sells it in the last closing sentences, saying that it's a global world of crown autocracy, class structure. Those aren't his words, but that's exactly the policies that you can only find with the royal family, specifically Prince Charles, who's got his hands waiting for his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, to pass so he can take the reins and finish off those works of destroying America. Already destroyed countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, who are not trust territories. Trudeau, Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, all unanimously behind all Canadians, all First Peoples back, put in a June 28th red flag on the play, using a power of a resolution done in 2001 with a history of presidents of the UNSC from 1994 onward, which is absolutely South Africa's complete transformation. Who is not a trust territory, was a build of the League of Nations exactly like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and folks, Canada's the first one, the first build. Always Canada is where you will find the start of, from independence of America and everything constitutionally mandated of America, you will find that is the opposite of the design of Canada, a design that would be put on other countries. People message me, they talk about, well, this one's got an elected senator, oh, we're so excited, this senator, until, like Australia, you read the Oath of Allegiance, the same Oath of Allegiance of all government officials in Canada. It's the same Oath of Allegiance as all the government officials of Australia, as well as the Oath of Allegiance for all government officials of New Zealand. All of them give away all their loyalty, sovereignty, as is stated, especially in Canada, right in the opening preamble, to the United Kingdom, specifically the royal family. That is anti-American, anti-we the people. It is what led to the War of Independence. Anyone trying to minimize that or stray from that is a traitor of the United States of America. Bernie Sanders is now officially a crown-loving autocrat too. He is a traitor of the American people. I love the idea of the American people and fighting inflation, all that, but it will not be done in that manner. He's another bold-face, career politician liar. Caught him dead to rights. Dead to rights. He has no interest in fighting communism. He has no interest in communism. He is absolutely using that platform to sneak in the crown. A real traitor. Why this is important, sorry, my stupid phone just gave me an update thing. They want to do it right now. It was like 11 hours I'm waiting for this and I need it. But folks, what's happening on June 28th, 2022, and I'm going to try to put this in layman terms, is Canada is trying to supersede the ability of Russia and China together in bringing forward in open debate for the entire world residential school genocide and Canada's gross application of governance against the principles of the UN Charter that is applied unanimously across this world to every UN state. Canadian Indians, Métis and Inuit, those in the Arctic Council, those under the Indian Act directly, and those who are displaced in unceded territories because you're literally at war with the Canadian government forever and a day, kept quiet on the world stage because they're not going in there and shooting them all down. They arrest you, they keep pounding on you until you just finally go away and give up. But folks, this is against everything that is the UN Charter. All those who participated in World War II, the colonial wars, that lost the war, all of those peoples that they subjugated in the crown were put into trust territories. There was 11 of them. Unfortunately, folks, there's also the allies of World War II who were colonials too. France, UK, for starters. There's others, but France, UK, Denmark. They were part of the victorious allies, but they are crown colonials, just like all the Axis powers. Japan, Germany, Egypt. That they're all were empires of colonialism, meaning a god-man king over people who had no real rights at all. I can go through all of it. We're not going to do that today. But for example, there was no such thing as the crime of rape. America invented that. That's true. Who came up with rape? America did. At least the modern version of rape, because before that there was a version of rape, for example, but it was in those colonials, all of them, but it was only for the first class. It was only for the first class, or a father, if a father came forward and claimed it. No woman could ever claim rape. No woman could ever. She was a whore. She got raped. It was her fault. And it wasn't even called rape. It wasn't even called rape. Americans invented that. You can go look at the history books. Americans brought it forward. Canada had no rape, none whatsoever. It took a lot of years after America started publishing that term and putting it in post-independence that the rest of the world started to use that terminology and implement legal terminology for it. But forever and a day, it never was, guys. It never was. Never was. Not in those colonial empires, as were many things. Many horrific human rights violations, many absence of civil rights that didn't exist in the world ever were put in post-1945 inside the UN Charter. Now, we've talked about the Axis powers. They got trust territory ship. And there's a whole bunch in the UN Charter about that. Section 7, Section 8 goes through it absolutely. Unfortunately, for a lot of people on the ally side, countries who are absolute colonials, you were promised a fix. You were promised a fix by King George VI, Sir Winston Churchill, and France absolutely capitulated. They were taken over by Nazi Germany, wiped right out. They were occupied. They lost control of everything. Only way to get restoration, the only way for the United States of America, the American people, to get involved in that war, and same with the USSR, was two agreements had to be signed by the President of Britain, the Prime Minister of Britain, and King George VI, ending all colonialism, meaning you'll give independence to all those folks. You will cement what the access will be imposed with, these trust territories. Now, where's the timeline? How long do you get to continue? Canada's been forever and a day. Should countries like Canada, New Zealand, Australia be put into a trusteeship too? I would absolutely say yes. Why do we control the Treaty Indian people? Call them savages and legislate an inhumane, animal binding law over them in the UN nation of Canada, who's bound to Articles 1 and 2. Articles 1 and 2. The debate in the UNSC that's going to happen, if I want residential school genocide to be brought up, if I want this to be talked about, I have to write each and every one of the P5, including the current president of the UNSC, arguing why. And I have to hope and pray, because it's not enough now with China and just Russia. I have to win either France, USA, or UK. Now, academia throughout UK is totally with me on this. Cambridge came forward first, United States of America, and UK academics said, hey, bud, you got to do this. Look. And I'm reading it, I'm like, yeah, I know. And I saw the change in the UNSC's registration of June's UNSC days outlined and what they're going to do. This red flag on the play by Canada, and that's what it is, folks, is that Canada has put in that they are a special status UN nation. Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, it's all about, we fund United Nations peace and security. We're an ally from World War II. We're a founding member. We want Resolution 1353. France didn't sponsor this because Canada couldn't get this done without somebody sponsoring it. So the sponsors were not China, were not Russia. I absolutely know it's not France. France already published June 2nd what they called for on June 28th. Nothing to do with Canada. And there's more here yet, folks. There's more here yet. I work hard and I dig. So that leaves only the United States and the UK. Now, logic would have me say that absolutely it was UK. But with Joe Biden, and then I just watched Bernie Sanders, I don't know, as they are down with the crown. And sadly, folks, I watched Donald Trump in his last 3 months become down with the crown, too. I watched it in his last 3 months. He released Baron Black, who controls National Post, several other media outlets, strong ties to The Observer, The Guardian, the list goes on and on and on. Canadians, First Peoples have no idea. Baron Black, a criminal, a fraud, a charlatan, who was convicted and placed in prison in the United States, pardoned by one Donald J. Trump in his last 3 months of office. He put him in the list, released him, freed him, allowed him to continue as a media mogul and giant right here in Canada on behalf of the royal family. Because he is part of the royal family. A slave master, a landowner, a wealthy baron, and the savage British worked on his lands as slaves. They never owned anything, just like the design of America in slavery. And they say, oh, America, bad, bad. America has transitioned from all that. They continue to fix. 1960 decolonization for the Allied countries and even trust territories called for this, for the whole world. Canada signed it, said, yeah, we're going to do it. No time frame again. The First Peoples are the savages. They continue on this way. Canadians say that's normal. It's normal to capture children. It's normal to have a prison system. Large majority, all First Peoples. Horrifically abused through decade and decade of genocide, most horrific kind. I don't think there's a Canadian out there right now that would say it would be normal for our CMP to go house by house by the government in legislation, kick down your door, arrest the dad if he resists because they're looking to take your children, take them away to an undisclosed school location, and you may never hear from them again. Or they come back and they're not normal anymore. They've suffered horrific abuse. They're animalistic now, completely out of control. And this went on decade after decade after decade after decade. You can really destroy a society and a culture of people. You can really do serious damage in physical, mental, psychological, and absolutely superior sexual abuse. Can you imagine raping of 4 to 12-year-old children? Can you imagine, folks, over and over again and no stopping? Can you imagine RCMP showing up at your house today, kicking in the door, grabbing all your children, and if you resist or you fight back, they'll shoot you down. Or they'll kill you, or they'll arrest you, or beat the shit right out of you. And mothers dragged off, or restrained, or raped, or arrested. That's what happened. Not just one episode of it. Over and over and over and over, decade after decade after decade after decade after decade. And this is supposed to be what June 28th is about, but there's a red flag on there. In Canada, are you ready for this, guys? So Canada made a deal and stole a turbine for Nord Stream 1 from Russia. It's in Quebec. This is why, second piece of evidence why I don't think France is the sponsor of this Resolution 1353 2001 and all the attachments I'm going through in relation to absolutely the UN Charter 1945, which a lot of that works for us. They only put in Section 7. They're limiting anybody from Section 8, but that's okay. Section 7 gives me quite a bit. But Canada took this turbine under the guise of sanctions, holds it in Quebec right now, Montreal, in fact, against Russia. It's depriving massive natural gas from the European Union, starving out Germany, reducing their energy by about 50%. So, of course, costs are going up, and then there's going to be lots of blackouts coming forward. UK has a narrative in media. They've been pumping the most propaganda, at least in Canada. The States doesn't see this like us Canadians do. A lot of that's tied to C11, Bill C11, and many other bills and other acts of Privy Council not disclosed to Canadians or First Peoples. That's the truth. So I have to articulate all of these things. I know I can get Russia. I know I'm going to get China. But under these rules imposed, I need three, or they can't bring up residential school genocide means 3P5 members, prior to even the June 28th open debate, can shut that down. And that's what Canada's asked for. And in return, they took that turbine that's Russia's and they hold it in Montreal. And it's a major, major international problem right now. Does USA like that under Joe Biden? Sure. Does UK like that under Prime Minister Boris Johnson? Sure. Would the royal family be 100% down with this? Sure. So I don't know. I have to sell it to France or UK or USA and somehow get them to change their position favoring Canada and sequestering. Now, folks, don't panic here. The reports for residential school genocide will go in. The problem is, and one did go in, but the problem is I want that on the world stage in the highest authority as it was in 2021, June 28th, 2021, Children's Day of Genocide and Armed Conflict, published forever and a day. I want that brought up. I want the trusteeship that should be the First Peoples given over to the Allies, just as other countries, so that all Canadians and all First Peoples can finally move forward in real self-determination, self-government, settlement of the claims, and absolutely real federalism for everybody. This happened for South Africa. A lot of rich people don't like it. But you know what? The average Joe Jane loves it. And absolutely those Africans, those South Africans, love it. Now, we can do this here. We have much more capability with much, much more what's called Crown Land, trusteeship, inherited from the UK, transferred in 1952 officially. Nobody can dispute this. There's no expert to come forward. No one's going to come forward and say, no, that's not true. It is 100% true. Provincial, federal crown land. All lieutenant governors and governor generals since 1952 have been appointed by Prime Minister, and the governor general sworn appointed by a Prime Minister appoints all the lieutenant governors on the advice of the Prime Minister for every province, and the commissioners, which are the vice-regal, for all territories. Folks, there's nothing democratic about Canada. They took the power of the crown from the United Kingdom prior to World War II, during Age of Empires, during absolute 500 years of colonialism. They took that divine power, God power of a man or woman, and took it for themselves and administered it on all of you. It is not to be in the United Nations. All the Axis powers had to give over their trust territories in absolute independence. There's still a few more to work out. It's been a 70-year process, but in large part, most of them done. And then even more than that, folks, there's been 84 other countries to see it done since World War II by the five glorious allies. 2005, South Sudan, folks. When is Canada going to cut all this away? As promised, as signed, sealed, certified, all the way back in 1952. When are we going to transition? When does somebody go forward and say, hey, look at what they're doing to the First Peoples? Look at this colonial system. A legal system, a government design, a political enterprise design matching the worst horrific countries the world's ever seen. Nazi Germany, 1933's Enabling Act. The Japanese, World War II, Southeast Asia, China, and many, many others, Korea. Why do we have a North and South Korea? Folks, why is there a divide? Communism or democracy? Why is there a line through one peoples like that? How did that happen? I can tell you there was much more. Communism is the go-to after the abuse of slavery and a class of savage people out of colonialism. Americans designed their entire system to defeat that. And all American politicians today, and for many decades, all they do is go, communism, 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 as they corrupt themselves with the crown that they threw out more than 250 years ago in the War of Independence. It is enshrined in their education, but not in the political realm or in the media. Apparently now, the crown is good. Just ask Joe Biden. He signed the 2021 New Atlantic Charter, cementing the royal family through Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is the CEO and director of the Commonwealth 2012 Charter of all Commonwealth countries. Absolutely in direct violation of Section 7, the Articles of the UN, Section 1, right after the preamble, and Section 2. Read articles which are on debate, and I have to write about this to the UNSCP 5 and try to win. Articles 1 to 4, Section 1, Section 2, Articles 1 to 7. Folks, read it, and you tell me that the Commonwealth Charter 2012, the New Atlantic Charter 2021 by Boris Johnson and President Joe Biden are any way, shape, or form anything represented by the victorious allies of World War II, led largely in San Francisco by the United States of America, all Republicans and all Democrats. In a majority, 77% of Americans. And that was a good idea for Joe Biden to do that. Bernie Sanders, oh, labor, we got to fight coming, we got to do this for the people and the big corporates, but not for globalism, not for the Green New Deal, and we need to follow the royal family, signed, sealed, certified. Are you fucked, Bernie Sanders? Who the fuck are you? Joe Biden, we know what he is, but who the hell are you? A liar, a wolf in sheep's clothing, an old rich bastard. That's all he is. He don't give a fuck about anybody. Never done nothing for the American Indian, never done nothing for the African American, and never done nothing for the average Joe Jane American. All talk, Cinderella puff, and then in the end, betray all Americans constitutionally and run right back to the crown. That's what he does. Folks, get it out there. Share. Tell people the truth. This is the fight we have in 1 week, and I'm going to fully disclose all that. I made this video just in case something were to happen to me. You just don't know. And Canada never fails to surprise me. I was not shocked. It pissed me off last night when I looked on the Children's Day of Genocide and I see this new debate structure put in. And of course, they don't say who did it. They don't have to. But France has already disclosed it's not them. And it definitely ain't China, and it definitely ain't Russia. That leaves two. Joe Biden, his lunatic Bernie Sanders, or Boris Johnson. I mean, likely it's Boris Johnson, likely, but I'd be wrong to just say that. So I have to figure out a way to present to each and every one of the five and see if leading up to Children's Day of Genocide and Armed Conflict in open debate. If I can use their new rules, not new rules, but they've grabbed rules that they're imposing. Anyone who says liberals are stupid, Trudeau might be a dummy, but his handlers are no dummies. These are people who are extremely intelligent, evil, but extremely intelligent, and it's hard, and it's sick. There's the Conservatives right in bed with it. There's the NDP right in bed with it. All those sworn to the crown will always be in bed with it. Always against all of you. Always against the Canadian First Peoples, Treaty Indian, and then the unceded Métis Inuit, and absolutely all working Joe Jane Canadians. You will always be the slave class who inherits all of their mistakes, their debts. While they get rich, they'll impose more debts on you if they can get away with it. And they do. They do. They divide you. They conquer you. Hate the Indian hate the Canadian. I see it on my feed and people get mad. We've got to work together. We've got to work together. 87% of Canada belongs to none of you. It belongs to an elite class of evil, who are in bed with world evil, who get to exploit your lands and bill you for it. What a deal that is. These billionaires, these massive billionaires, all financed by government entities. Civil societies always attached to the corrupt governments. USA has a tremendous constitution, has tremendous potential, but the evil tricking the average American is growing, largely because of countries like Canada, largely because of all of the Commonwealth, and people just don't see it. They think, well, it'll get better. It hasn't been getting better, folks. It's getting worse and worse. A tremendous sized country, none of it available to you, hardly any land available to anybody. There's a few who made it in that second class, but there's a pile of those second class who were kicked down to third class whenever the government decided to liquidate you. We just watched all the small businesses go through it here in Canada, the big shakeout. Record 50% wealth increase for all the big multinationals, all the extremely large businesses attached to the Crown's agenda. But all you simple small business owners, you got the shaft, you got bankrupted, you took on more debt that when you bankrupt, it just goes on to the public debt, the Joe Jane taxpayer who will service that, meaning his services become less and less and less, costing more and more and more. And they tell you, oh, inflation. Inflation is caused by your government. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. The legislators made the laws that lead to all of this. And why? Because there are no laws that cement you, the people, or you, the first people. None whatsoever. You don't even exist. And for the umpteenth time, all those, oh no, the Charter of 1982, a small little shit document. At the Privy, it's told you before the document's introduced in the Constitution and after it's told to you in the Constitution, subject to your divine ruler, the God of all gods, your Prime Minister. Ultimately, when you go back through your Constitution, all the terms go back to him or her. They are the God King over you. And if they don't want you to have those rights, they take them away. They get to interpret them any way they like. And if they don't like the way the people are doing it, or the courts are all bound to them too. It's called King's Court. The court must obey the Prime Minister through his crown powers, Governor General, and all lieutenant governors. There's no superior court, highest court of a province or territory. They can ever override whatever they want, whatever they wish. There is no highest court in Canada, the Supreme Court of Canada, that can ever override anything your sitting Prime Minister ever says. Through his crown, Governor General, nothing. They can strip all those justices of their position. They can strip all the lawyers of their position, all their ability to ever practice law if they don't capitulate and honor their oath of allegiance. Look at all their oaths of allegiance. This is the same for Australia and New Zealand. Regardless of the minor changes, the Crown autocracy has and always is alive in the Commonwealth for many, many countries. The worst being Canada, but not so far off Australia and New Zealand. Those are the three worst. South Africa was one of them. They crossed the UNSC line in absolute genocide, and they got decimated. Canada's sneaky. They try to always keep under it, and they try to corrupt through slave money wealth transfer to pay off political officials around the world. And they're winning, folks. Look at Joe Biden. They're winning. They're winning. We got to try to fight back. I don't know. I've got to win either UK, USA, or France. One of them. Or that narrative isn't going to go forward. Now, it's still great to report. We have to. That will be logged in the records. But on the world stage, publicly, one day a year, when publicly this will be debated and the videos will be made and it will be official, just like 2021, I need this to go out, folks. I need it to be said. It will move mountains. It will move mountains. So that's where we're at, and we're just going to keep going forward. I now have a tremendous amount of work to do. There's lots we've done with First Peoples and the nations, the Métis nations, and absolutely the Inuit nations involved in the first round of reporting. I know there's a massive amount now this summer in Manitoba and other locations, but we're too late for June, and that's okay. We've already had one report. We only needed one to keep it alive, and that's tremendous. And that report's in, folks. That report is in. Special shout out to Jonathan LaBelle for seeing that through. I guess I should ask your permission, but I think everybody knows who's on the team now anyway, and it's excellent. It's there, folks. It's already done deal, but the thing is, we got to keep going. We got to get the numbers up to 5,100. Now, why is that? Because that's the 3% precedent in absolute UNSC history. They're all about rule of law since 1945. 3%. We get it of the 150,000 children. I say 5,100. They didn't say 5,100. It has to be more than 5,000. I already know it's going to be at least 6,000, largely more when you get into tuberculosis claims. But I just say that number just so that there's no question. No question. There's not one UNSC member who's going to go, oh, well, they're going to go, wow, that's massive, right? That's 3%. They look at all of their history since 1945 and will say, yep, we acted that. That's called precedent, the law common to all and Roman statute activated now. And that means Canada loses its ability to control the situation, absolutely. Just like every other nation, just like South Africa, they lost their ability to control that. Now, Canada has put this little red flag there for the day, and it's winning right now, but I have to win one more of the P5, one more. It can't just be Russia and China. We got away with it in 2021, and it was beautiful. It was excellent. It doesn't matter. It's wicked, and we know, we've reported, there will be other days that China can bring it up anyway, but in this format, they've imposed some rules, and you can all read it. It's right on the UN agenda that day. And then That means when you read all that out, I have to, long before June 28th, I have to win 3 of those countries. If I do, they make the narrative, which means we will hear about residential school genocide publicly worldwide by the UNSCP5. So it is a tremendous amount of pressure, and it's got to be done. Love you all. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Thanks for taking the update. I was up too late reading everything, but I feel strong. Everyone's going to get to see what I send to them, everybody. And it is going to get emailed out to all the nations, but I'm going to make sure everybody sees this, that, I did fight the fight. We did fight the fight. And anyone who's followed me for years, we fight the fight. And if you think they don't get it or they don't hear about it, I can tell you the last UNSC rep, USA, Kelly Nightcroft, you'll find she follows me on Twitter. It's real. It's beautiful. As soon as she got fired, boom, hits the friend button, right? The follow button. It's like sweet. So, folks, all we can do is try, and I fight. We never give up. We never surrender. Our team's going to continue to go, but I do have my plate full over this week and this weekend, and I do enjoy some time with my girls. So happy Sunday. Share. Credible, real, verifiable. No bullshit here. Thank you. Bye now.